Welcome to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. So what does food mean to you? I'm here today with Rocco from Rocco's Dough, and he's in Miami, Florida. And Rocco is an expert on Neapolitan pizza. He's obsessed with Neapolitan pizza, and he's kind of made it his life passion. So we're going to have fun today with this, and Rocco's going to tell us just all about, even some tips on if you want to try a Neapolitan pizza and just, tricks and tips and what makes it so superior and all good things. Rocco, thank you so much for being here today.
Maria, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the compliments.
Sure.
Every pizza maker always considers himself a student of the craft. So thank you for mentioning that. Absolutely.
Yes, I think Rocco, what we had discussed this before, and I thought it was interesting. So you made great use of the pandemic, because tell us how you got into the Neapolitan pizza. I think that's all related, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I get back to the name Rocco's Dough. How I came up with my company name was the most Googled thing that was happening last year during the pandemic. Everybody's quarantined. And people were Googling, how do you make bread at home? And I was on YouTube, and me being Italian and loving pizza, I said, how do I make pizza at home? And I've stumbled upon many pizzaiolos online, and I discovered the Neapolitan pizza. I knew about it in the past. Me being from New York, was familiar. Yes. But once I really discovered it, its simplicity, the ingredients, the dough, the process, it's one of the most amazing pizzas you can ever eat. And I tried a few recipes from pizza makers, and then they encouraged me to create my own. And I took it a step ahead. I created my own recipe, and a year later, I formed the company, and it's just amazing how it all came together.
Wow! And, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You will believe how how it could start from almost anyone could start it, and if you create a passion for it, it just comes out of you. You fall in love with it. And I fell in love with the Neapolitan pizza. Wow. It brings joy to my heart every time I have a chance to make it.
And I was just going to throw in that you learned more about how to make it all online, right? That's
absolutely.
How with the pandemic, you were able to spend time.
Absolutely. During the pandemic, I was able to learn everything online. Wow. Took a few master classes. I studied under a few pizzaiolos. And you just encouraged yourself to learn more. There's so many opportunities online you can teach yourself. Yes. And a lot of pizza makers would say the Neapolitan has a certain process which has certain standards. They call it fermentation. Some pizzaiolos will make the dough within 24 hours before baking the pizza. That's like a minimum standard. I go up to 72 hours. It's like a window. And I found out from my preference, more fragrant, more full of flavor, more digestible, and more just overall delicious dough I can come out by allowing that 3-day process to happen. It's amazing.
Well, so you allow the dough, you're saying to allow the dough to ferment then for 72 hours, makes it more fragrant and digestible and
absolutely,
all of that.
Very, very tasty. And, the greatest test you can give yourself is people who normally don't eat crust on a pizza. If they're eating your crust, you're going in the right direction. They start eating your crust from the pizza. They say it's so delicious. And then that sends a good signal to me as well.
Oh yes, definitely. And it goes back to Italian cooking. I always say one of the secret ingredients is time. The other one is love. So the passion. The other one is time, and that's really if you just put time into it, because a lot of the recipes don't. If you do them fast, you need to have the time. A lot of the things, when I do some things, I just do it, I'll start early in the morning, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You probably know if it's something that needs to be eaten, say the next day or later that day. So it has enough time to soak in the flavors. And that's really what you're talking about. So that is definitely a secret ingredient of Italian cooking, is the time. And so I know there were some tips you had told me before, maybe people can do to try, we don't all have those wood burning ovens that, give it such a great taste. But are there some tips you can give us to, if we have, want to try a Neapolitan pizza in our home oven?
That's a great question. And that's how I got started.
Wow.
One of the most lovely things about Neapolitan is four simple ingredients. It's flour, yeast, salt, and water. And the way you manipulate that, the way you put that together will create your dough. It just becomes amazing. Now for the home oven, the whole trick is say people say, oh, you have to buy a pizza stone. You really don't have to buy that. You have a sheet pan. You put the sheet pan upside down in your oven. You preheat it at the max temperature for about 1 hour.
Right.
And then you have your dough made. It's fermented. It's ready to be stretched and put in the oven.
Right.
You want to stretch your dough for your pizza. You want to just put your sauce on first, and then you want to pre-cook the dough for 7 minutes in the oven. Allow the crust to bubble up a little bit. You see a little color. Then you take it out with it using another sheet pan, like a bottom of a sheet pan. That takes place of your pizza peel.
Okay.
You put it back on. You put your remaining of your ingredients like fresh mozzarella, basil. You put it back in the oven, and you allow the mozzarella to melt, and that's when you know your pizza's ready. It's soft and crunchy. And the key is with a home oven, a lot of them go to about 550 degrees Fahrenheit. You want to keep it at the max temperature always, and then keep it closer to the grilling part of the oven, like the broiler up to the top of the shelf.
Right.
And that's basically all you need. You don't have to have any fancy tools or anything like that. You need a bowl to mix your ingredients, flour, salt, yeast, and water. Make your dough the night before. I would suggest the night before. It'll become very light, very soft and crunchy at the same time, very digestible. And that's the whole thing, allowing the fermentation process to take place, allow the ingredients to assimilate together and really become together as a nice, fluffy, delicious dough. You want to allow that time.
Right. One question I have for you, do you know why I've had a lot of people ask me, and I don't use oil in my pizza dough, but people actually think you need to put olive oil in your pizza dough. Have you ever come across
you know what, actually that's I'm glad you mentioned that. Olive oil is actually good to put in the pizza dough for home ovens cooking. It helps with the cooking process.
Okay,
it'll help with the browning of the crust a little bit.
Okay.
And actually, if you want to take it a step further, go a step above.
Yes.
If you take an agent called malt, put a little malt in your recipe, that'll help with the browning of your dough. Cook it from a home oven. You can add a little bit of malt, malt to your recipe. And that with olive oil, you'll see it come out like, wow, this almost looks like a restaurant style type
pizza. So, but it's probably just a little bit, like a small amount of olive oil, right?
Small amounts. I would say like maybe 10 milligrams or even 5 milligrams.
And you're adding that into the dough, or do you mean to drizzle it on top? No, add it into the dough.
You add it in the dough, and then before you cook, you dab a little bit on the crust.
Right.
Matter of fact, after the first cook, you take the dough out, you drizzle it on the edge a little bit, and then when you put the mozzarella on the pizza and slide it back in, the olive oil will cook on the crust, make it a little more crunchy.
Wow. Now I always put it on the top of my crust, but I'm going to try adding some olive oil in the dough. I've never done it that way. That sounds great.
So and that's how some of the tricks work for home ovens. Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love it that people don't need any special type of equipment and all this stuff.
They need your bare hands to mix the dough.
Exactly.
You need a dough machine. Actually, more love comes out of your body from your hands into the dough, into the flour. That makes a pizza. They say when you put your hands in the flour, that's a pizza. So it kind of comes together that way.
And that is true. I can't tell you how many places I've been to in Italy where there are these bread bakers and pizza makers that have been doing it for years. You know, it's in their family, and you can just taste the love, you know, from the bread or the pizza. So it does really come out. You're able to taste that if you put your whole heart and soul into something. Absolutely. It really does make a difference. So what kind of I know Neapolitan Pizza has its own somewhat like a trademark on it. What's the typical or the traditional Neapolitan pizza topping?
Absolutely. So we call it the classic margherita.
Right.
And it starts off with the dough and San Marzano tomato sauce in the base, a little bit of basil leaves.
Yes.
Fresh basil, fresh mozzarella, olive oil garnish. And then it's ready to go. That's the Italian flag, green, white, and red.
Yes. Yes.
And then the key is the freshest ingredients that we use on Neapolitan versus like not so like store-bought, but you want the freshest ingredients, and then you could taste each ingredient on the pizza. You have good quality there, and that's the one of the significant qualities, characteristics of a Neapolitan. You can, when you take a bite into it, it's like you're tasting the sauce, the cheese, the olive oil, the basil, everything together comes in one.
Yes. Yes.
And the dough, of course. The dough is
the dough, definitely. And the dough really adds. And the thing that's, I could just taste what you're saying, but the thing is, it's all like it keeps with this idea that Italian cooking, everything is in balance. So nothing really overpowers each other, but the flavors complement each other. And as you're saying, there's not that many flavors because you're talking about basil, tomatoes, mozzarella, and olive oil. And olive oil, pinch of salt. So that's why you're telling people they have to have the best ingredients, because you only have a few ingredients to really, capture that really flavor, right?
No, the fewest ingredients in your dough recipe as well is the most flavorful dough you could ever make. So it's like you're not adding fat to the dough. It's just flour, yeast, salt, and water. The most basic ingredients you can
How about the flour? Like, is there any specific recommendations you have for a flour?
Absolutely. For Neapolitan pizza, you want to use what's called type 00 flour. It's a fine cut of the flour where it absorbs the water really well. And in most places of the world, you only could use certain kinds of water. So you want to use tap water. Like I use South Florida water, and then the dough still comes out amazing with that type of flavor. And it's also for the water absorption, the hydration of the dough, and the longevity of the fermentation. So if you want to leave the dough in your refrigerator for 3 days, 00 flour is the way to go with a high protein percentage. That helps keep the strength of the dough and the gluten. It's a lot of science behind it. We can get into another conversation about
yes, that. It's kind of like chemistry. But the one thing, I want to point out, so 00 flour, I've noticed a lot of just supermarkets carry the 00 flour now. I used to actually carry it back from Italy, have suitcases full of it, or have it sent back, because I had always had a hard time finding it here. But now, because people are aware of the 00 flour, there's a lot of supermarkets that do carry that. So and you can find it.
Some similarities, like a bread flour, even something that has a high protein content as well, that could absorb the water and able to ferment and handle the fermentation for that amount of time that you want the dough to come together. And really
and that's important too. That ingredient is important because people think, okay, flour, I just use any flour or any tomato. And you pointed out the San Marzano tomato, which people can find, unfortunately, if you don't grow them fresh, because you can grow them fresh, but if you don't, well, now it's not a time for fresh tomatoes, but you can find them canned. And so the San Marzano is a really superior quality. It's a sweeter tomato for those of you that haven't tasted that. So all these little nuances, right, are important.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing I wanted to point out is, see, there's a lot of type 00 flours on the market, but not everyone is specifically designed to make Neapolitan pizza. It's the W rating in the dough. And that's also a key factor. It's actually the strength of the dough that can handle the hydration and the fermentation. Wow. So you want a flour that's around 280 to 330 W rating. And we can get into that further about that. But generally, supermarkets carry that type of 00 flour, like Caputo as a great brand. That's the chef flour. I use that a lot. You see that in the supermarkets, and that's an ideal dough for Neapolitan pizza. Flour.
Yes, Caputo is an old Neapolitan brand, and that's made for definitely.
If you get Caputo, you're in the right direction, right there.
Yes,
you're going along the right.
You're in the authentic Neapolitan, definitely.
Absolutely. The simplicity of the whole pizza, and the fact that it cooks under 2 minutes, because you have to cook it within a professional oven up to 900 degrees. Wow. And the ideal one is coming out in 60 seconds. And it's amazing how it all comes together.
Yes. And Neapolitan pizza, also for everybody to know, because there's all kinds of different pizzas. The Neapolitan pizza, I love it because it's thinner, right? It's got a thinner crust.
It does. It's a thinner base, and it can have like what we call the cornicione, a little puffy crust where it has a lot of air pockets. Right. So you think it looks like a little dough in the end, but it's actually full of air. And when you bite into it, It's soft and crunchy, very light at the same time.
Yes, it is. It's light. It's not, you know, people, because in Italy, you know, sometimes you can order, it looks like this gigantic plate with one pizza on it for one person, yeah. But it's not like you're really ordering a whole pizza like you get in the US. It's a real thin crust, like you're saying, and it's actually very light. So it's not the same.
It's like a personal size pizza as well. Exactly. One person can enjoy it and then go for a walk, where other samples of pizza, when you eat it, you want to take a nap.
Yes.
There's a difference of the weight of it as well.
Yes, definitely. That's they're all really great tips. So Rocco, tell everybody where they can find you in Miami.
Absolutely, and I'm all over the social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram at Rocco's Dough, ROCCOS, and my website is roccosdough.net. I am a mobile caterer, so I bring the party to you. Great. And I cater at people's events, carnivals, people's houses, and pretty much all over Miami with my little Fiat Cinquecento. I have the classic Italian car as well that it brings my company around.
Oh, wow. That's great. Yeah. That's great.
I'll have to show you a picture one day of it.
Yes, definitely. Send that to me. I love that car. Well, thanks so much for being here. And I'll just make a little mention that, you know, stay tuned, because Rocco we may be doing a virtual pizza class coming up in 2022. I'm planning some interesting classes.
I'm really excited to do that with you, Maria.
Yes, really I'm excited too. So keep posted on social media, and we'll keep you posted as to when we'll be doing a cooking class. So maybe you can learn how to make Neapolitan pizza the way Rocco knows how to do it
at home, and in the comfort of your own home, with your own oven as well.
Yes, definitely. That's the most important thing.
Pizza is a lifestyle. It's a work of art, and then you see it come to life. You'll understand what I'm talking about once you do it.
Exactly. And you know, I love it because it's such a simple food. You can just use so many things for a topping. I mean, you know, obviously the Neapolitan, the traditional, is what we talked about. But, you know, if you just want to throw a quick meal together that's really healthy, you can actually still make it healthy and put almost whatever ingredients, as long as you have a good dough.
Absolutely. You know? And that's the key. You just said it. Excellent. That's definitely it.
A good dough. So that's great. Rocco, thank you so much for being with us. And you know, I know we'll be seeing you in the near future, and looking forward to doing that virtual cooking class with you.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to do that with you, Maria. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Viva la pizza.
Yes, viva la pizza.